class, I'm Kennedy Green and I'm going to do my presentation on the fundamental attribution error. This is my audience. Judging people based upon their personality instead of the situation they are in is a way for people to understand flaws in each other. I will discuss an explanation of the fundamental attribution error, how people form judgments on each other instead of analyzing a situation, how the attribution error is negative, and how the error affects relationships. I will begin by explaining the fundamental attribution error. The basic definition of the fundamental attribution error is that it twists the observer's judgments on any individual. According to Zachariah Berry of Bethel University, one important explanation of the fundamental attribution error is that people are more significant than the situations they are in. I see the fundamental attribution error as individuals judging others by what they perceive about them externally, instead of analyzing the situation they are in. Scientists believe that people as a whole do what they can to think easily and not exert their energy on processing what is in front of them. Another big key to the explanation of the fundamental attribution error is that individuals lack the necessary background information to make a logical evaluation. An example of the fundamental attribution error is, let's say someone is walking and they step on their shoelace and trip. Observers will instantly think something along the lines of, oh, that person must be stupid, or that person is clumsy and doesn't know how to walk properly. Instead of analyzing a situation, they'll instantly make these assumptions and judge the individual who tripped. Next, I will discuss how people form judgments on each other instead of analyzing the situation. People look at individuals' internal traits. Even if they clearly understand the situation, more often than not, they will continue to judge. When people judge themselves for actions, they tend to look at the external factors rather than at their own internal factors. Most people will only look at the internal factors if they're judging others. This act is known as the actor-observer bias. There's a phenomenon known as the just world phenomenon. It's described as people getting what they deserve and deserving what they get. In this phenomenon, we attribute all of the failures to dispositional causes rather than the situational causes. This phenomenon sadly results in a blame on people for uncontrollable tragedies and mistakes such as rape and most types of abuse. A big cause of the fundamental attribution error is culture, especially in small towns with naive citizens. Depending on where individuals are from, the likelihood for the error to happen to them either increases or decreases. An example of the culture involved in the fundamental attribution error may include an individual judging someone on how they dance because of the way they do things in their culture. They may think that the individuals don't know how to dance well, that the individuals are dancing provocatively because of where they come from, or simply may think the individual dancing is just doing certain moves as a form of attention seeking. Now I will talk about the negativity paired with the fundamental attribution error. Is there really any positivity to associate with it? The fundamental attribution error has negative effects on relationships, impedes judgments on innocent people, and makes society look at people as being lazy and unfit to make sound analyzations. The fundamental attribution error results in individuals being judged without people really understanding what's going on. This causes stress on those being judged and ends up making them have much larger issues than the mistakes they make or the accidents that happen to them. This fundamental attribution error also causes cognitive dissonance. Some people may say they don't judge others or do their best not to judge either. However, when fundamental attribution error comes into play, they really are judging people. They may not do this on purpose, but it most definitely happens in everyone's lives. When people make misattributions, it causes for unhappiness and consequences. People are likely to hear facts of a situation, and they will constantly seek back to the fact. If this fact isn't actually important to the situation, there is room for misunderstandings which result in many more issues. There wouldn't be as much spite in this world if people would use their sense and logically think about what's going on around them while analyzing a situation, rather than making judgments. An example of a fundamental attribution error as being negative include men and women attributing different types of friendly behavior as sexual tendencies. This results in a large amount of sexual harassment in both the workplace and in everyday situations. Lastly, I will describe how fundamental attribution error affects relationships. How are we ever to have positive relationships when all we do is judge individuals before we even know what has happened? The fundamental attribution error results in victimization and puts stress on those being judged. When people are being victimized and put under stress, they tend to shut down or react in ways that don't create positive relationships. The need for people to have positive relationships in their lives is critical to happiness. The fundamental attribution error tends to get in the way of this type of happiness. Everyone knows the saying, "the first impression lasts." Well, according to research, that is true. Now associate this with the fundamental attribution error, and yet again we find society's judgments impede on relationships because the first thing most people do is judge. An example of the fundamental attribution error having an effect on relationships is imagine two people in a marriage constantly judging each other because of the things they do in certain situations. This has the potential to make for a lot of tension in the relationship. If individuals in a relationship have the ability to focus on the situation rather than the internal characteristics of someone, their marriage will be a much better relationship to be in. Furthermore, we conclude that the fundamental attribution error affects our judgment on other people. In conclusion, I have discussed the necessary subjects of the fundamental attribution error. I have elaborated on an explanation of the error, discussed how people form judgments on others, talked about the negativity related to the fundamental attribution error, and explained the effect it has on relationships. Knowing this information, you can now soundly analyze situations instead of judging others. Thank you for listening.